though we all consider it just as a holiday nowadays, but for students of history and others, I think this is a day of enormous significance because it's the Republic Day of our country, and it gives me enormous pleasure to introduce our two speakers this evening to all of you present here. It's really a privilege to have on my right Professor Sabyasachi Bhattacharya. I think all of us who have been students of history, for us he's an extremely familiar face, and he's been the Vice Chancellor of Vishwabharati University, and we have grown up reading his books. I don't think I need to go into mentioning the titles of all his books. We have gained enormously from him, and sir, it's really an honor for us to have you amidst us this evening. On my left, I have an extremely bright young scholar. She's a student of literature, and she's Ananya Vajpeyi, but she has ventured into writing extremely interesting books, and the one we are here to discuss this evening is called The Righteous Republic. I think chosen very well, considering we are here this evening to speak on Republic Day. Ananya is at the moment in Delhi, and she is in the process of researching a book on Bhimrao Ambedkar, and I think this is going to be an extremely exciting discussion. Let's hope for that at least. I've had the opportunity of going through both the books that have been mentioned for us this evening, but before we really look at the works of these two scholars on my left and right, when we were having this talk a little while ago, the three of us, Professor Bhattacharya expressed this desire that he would want to talk a little about the constitution of our country and the work that really was done by the Constituent Assembly when they were in the process of preparing this constitution. And thereafter, it's for us to really discuss this evening how far we have progressed from what the constitution makers really created for us then and where we are now. I mean, what are the crossroads that we are looking at this juncture for our nation? So sir, if you would.
I'm indeed very happy to be here today, both as an author and also as one of the trustees of the Victoria Memorial Hall. It's a pleasure to see such happenings at this venue. And it's also, I must say, quite heartwarming to see hundreds and thousands of people this place today, I suppose it's a Republic Day that they're celebrating. And I think when this program was drawn up, the idea was that there would be a focus on the constitution, that's what the program says. And we could begin with that and then go on to things which would be of interest to me and to you. Indeed, today is significant because exactly 54 years ago, on this day, the Indian Constitution came into effect legally, and there is a lot of hype about the Constitution. For one thing, in popular imagination, there are these so-called founding fathers, and in the courts of law, naturally, constitutional lawyers, quite often, politicians, they are literate enough. Now, what is all this about? To what extent does the Constitution reflect the aspirations? That is a question that I would like to begin. I think if you look at the Constituent Assembly debates, which are, by the way, now online, with an excellent search engine as well, if you look at those debates, or if you look at the Constitution itself, it may occur to you, especially that thought first in my mind, like occur to you too, that actually there are a lot of meanings in that debate, the deliberations of the Assembly remain hidden from us unless we look at it in the light of the nationalist discourse that preceded the making of the Constitution. This, of course, is true of other major foundational documents of life. If you look at, for instance, what the States General later called a National Assembly, what it did after something in July. It was not very significant, but unless you look at the philosophers in second period, look at the writings of, say, Voltaire, Montesquieu, Saint-Simon, it's difficult for you to understand what it's all about. And likewise, I suppose the American Revolution is the two great republics celebrated history. The American Declaration of Independence. And that again is a very similar document. But you see, it is to be read in the light of what Jefferson wrote, or what Benjamin Franklin or John Taylor wrote earlier. And I think it's therefore very important for us to look at the nationalist discourse as a whole and to look at the Constitution and the deliberations of the Assembly in the light of that seen discourse. Ananya has worked a little bit on that. In fact, a very substantial work published recently. And would you like to come in on that? I could pick it up again.
It's very interesting that Professor Bhattacharya has mentioned the influence of the constitutions of both France and America, because when I was going through Ananya's work, what was indeed striking was her very, very different approach to the creation of the Indian Constitution and the influence that she speaks about. And she's chosen 5 of our thinkers in no particular sequence, but she speaks about, I think you begin with Gandhi, and then Rabindranath Tagore, and Abanindranath, and thereafter it's Jawaharlal Nehru and Bhimrao Ambedkar. And her take was so different that, you know, when I was going through her book, in the beginning I was completely thrown off, because she wants to make us reread the Constitution in the light of Indian traditions and the influence of India's past, keeping in place the influence of the constitutions of other nations. So Ananya, would you like to begin there about the influence of India's past, and then maybe we could go into the thoughts of some of the thinkers.
Thank you both. You know, my purpose in writing this book was not really to speak directly about the Constitution, which we know, in a sense, lies at the beginning, as it were, of the main project of living life as a nation state and as an independent polity in the modern world. I was more interested in sort of exploring and questioning a climate of ideas prevalent from, let's say, the late 19th century right up to independence and onwards. Looking at the diverse set of influences that were at play and that were sort of driving the conversation on what kind of sovereignty and on what kind of politics India would eventually like to pursue as an independent nation. Yes, I mean, I was, I obviously started, like every other historian of this period, with a sense that, the Constituent Assembly did look at other democracies, other examples of modern constitutions, including Ireland and Japan, not just France and America. And of course, the sort of British parliamentary system was very much in everyone's sort of, their direct focus as what, was the main kind of interlocutor. So I understood that, but at the same time it seemed to me that there were and there had been so many active political traditions on the subcontinent and so many important norms and values to do with the nature of power, the nature of sovereignty, the nature of rule, questions about justice, questions about peace, questions about equality and inequality, much longer, in a sense, longer running discourses, but also traditions from which we had become somewhat removed through the fact of, through the intervention of Western imperialism and British colonialism. So I was interested to try to explore, how those other ideas, which had a longer life, and perhaps gone into recession in some sense, by the time we get to sort of the height of colonial rule, how they might have played a role in the thinking of many of our leaders who also happen to be intellectuals, who are not just sort of mass leaders like many of the people we talk about, but were also actively engaged in looking at Indian history, looking at the world, in engaging with political thought, both East and West, and sometimes further East than India as well, especially with the wars. So I wanted to sort of see how that all worked out, apart from the kind of obvious learnings and the obviously derivative nature of India's modernity, political modernity.
If I could come in here, when I was reading the section that you've written on Gandhi, what really struck me was the kind of influence that you talk about of the, our two epics, and particularly the Mahabharata. And you've spoken extensively over there about how, he was so deeply influenced by the Bhagavad Gita. And that, the kind of impact that left on his thoughts, which were getting structured to create his political philosophy. So do you want to elaborate on that?
In a sense, you could say that there's a great deal of tension between a lot of what somebody like Gandhi or somebody like thought about the nature of collective life, the nature of political life, the nature of society, and many of their kind of deeply held beliefs, which they developed and debated over the course of their long careers and with each other as well, as Professor Bhattacharya has written about so extensively. ostensibly. I mean, there's a kind of deep tension between ideas like ahimsa and Swaraj and Swadeshi and the critique of Swadeshi and the kind of suspicion of nationalism and nation states and state power that you see in both Gandhi and Tagore. And the kind of constitutional project of nation building, which is the project of mainstream nationalism. So on the one hand, you have your sort of founding fathers and the fathers of the nation and the sort of writers of your national anthem and so on, and the face on your currency note, really questioning the fundamentals of modern political power, right, and trying to displace violence from the center of that theory of power. And on the other hand, you have an outcome like a fairly standard democratic nation state with a republican constitution, which is what India turns out to be. So, where's that tension coming from? That was one of my questions. And Gandhi, confesses that he was deeply attached to the Bhagavad Gita and that he read it, year after year after year for almost 40 years. And he kept rereading it week after week. And we know in some obvious sense that the Gita is spoken in a setting of violence and war. And yet Gandhi's central principle is one of non-violence. And it seems very peculiar that he would return to a text which is about the necessity of waging war and take away from it the idea that non-violence has to be the primary principle of his political philosophy, right? So how does that work itself out? And for that I felt revisit his relationship to the Gita, his relationship to the Gita, and to the characters of not just Arjuna and Krishna but also Yudhishthira and others in the Mahabharata, and follow what one could make of, in a fairly indirect way, his interpretation of the dilemma of dharma around questions of violence and war, which is so central to that epic, right? And then to travel from there to the kind of token role that Gandhi plays as the father of the nation, which turns out not at all to be a non-violent nation actually. That was something that I felt needed to be done in order to kind of have a rounded sense of the deep tensions, the contradictions, but also the creative possibilities that are present within political discourse in India and continue to be to this day.
I want to bring in Professor Bhattacharya here because when we go through his work on the Mahatma and the poet, and considering she's talking about the thoughts that steered the beliefs of these two men, what is really endearing when you go through Professor's book is how he talks about this enduring friendship between these two men, and yet how they differed so greatly on some of their thoughts. So, sir, would you elaborate on that a little bit, about their beliefs of Swaraj and nationalism?
I think it's important to look at this entire discourse not only in terms of what is left behind, in terms of national consciousness, but also to look at the differences within this discourse. And I hope when we come into any kind of now different, but I think I did not sufficiently emphasize the difference between the two. Of late, I've been looking at Gandhi and Nehru, and I see a tension developing from the middle 1940s, leading Nehru to say that I reject entirely Gandhi's In 1945, there was a very interesting exchange of letters between Gandhi and Nehru. It's very relevant to our discussion. Because after all, we also we are looking at not only what was said and done in those times, but how did it impact the future, the Republic, the policy of the Republic. You see, in 1945, I think it happened around the 6th of October, Nehru writes a very curious kind of letter to Gandhi. He says that, I've just read Sri Swaraj once again, and I think there is scarcely anything there which would be relevant to our country after independence. Gandhi writes back saying, please elaborate, and I would like to know, he says, I would like to know what my hair, my political hair. It's a very rare occasion where actually Gandhi says this. I would like to read out one of those passages.